What's good, ladies and gents? Welcome back to MKO Boxing, aka MKO Pugilism, where we talk all things box. Remember to like and subscribe on YouTube and follow me on TikTok, of course. So let's get into this one. In other news now, there's a bit of breaking news regarding Deontay, the Bronze Bomber Wilder. Now, Wilder was last seen in action when he got his seventh round KO victory. And to be honest, in that victory, he looked kind of tame in a way. It looked noticeably slower on the uptake, and he looked like his timing and everything had gone. He did manage to get the guy out of there, but it was more the referee jumping in than Wilder's sort of destructive KO power that we saw him put many people to sleep with. Yeah, he looked like he definitely missed a step in his last outing. But he's gone on to say in the news, I was reading on Talksport, that he says he's got 10 more years left in boxing. And Deontay Wilder now is about 40. I think he's either 39 or 40. He says, I've got 10 years left in this game and I'm going to box until I'm 50. I can box until I'm 50. I've got those years left. And they were asking him about opportunities and what Francis Ngannou's saying, and he said, yeah, he's willing to face Francis Ngannou next, and talking about Anthony Joshua among others, among other propositions. But he was very sort of stern on the point that if he wants, he's got 10 years in the game that he can carry on boxing, and for me, looking at that and listening to that statement, I think one word covers it, and that's delusion. And I think Deontay Wilder, yes, at his time in his peak years, decent fighter. He didn't really do the fundamentals very well. He was a bit ungainly, but he had excellent timing with the right hand and knew how to line people up with it. He's a former world champion, which we can appreciate that. But yeah, not a very good boxer when it came to the fundamentals, but he just knew how to zero in and land that right hand. Um, but at this point in time, he's not even able to do that. He's not even able to really zero in with that right hand. As I've said earlier, he's significantly slower than when he was in his prime, and he seems to have lost the timing when he's throwing punches. He seems off with his rhythm and everything, and significantly slower. So I mean, I think this whole thing about going on for 10 years, I just think it's one of those things where once a fighter, always a fighter. And I assume it's coming from the fact that he trains, he works out, he's had a fight not too long ago, he's won that fight, and obviously in his eyes, he's got this confidence and this delusion that fighters kind of have to have, where even if the odds are against them, if they're going into a fight, they're always going to think they can win. They're always going to think they can do it. And he's just still got that thing where he's not living in the real world. He's probably thinking in his head that he can do what he did, let's say 5, 10 years ago. He's in his head. He probably thinks he can do it, but like many other fighters who go on after retire and come back when they're too old and all this sort of stuff. That I think this is what basically Deontay Wilder's going through at this point. And for me personally, I think really going by what we've seen of him, I would say really he should probably retire unless he can get a fight against somebody like an Anthony Joshua, because I think Anthony Joshua probably has a little bit more left than Deontay Wilder, but I think with Anthony Joshua, there's kind of the mental fragility there. But I think a fight against Anthony Joshua, because they're both at that similar stage where they're kind of finished, they're kind of right at the end of their career, I think that would probably make sense for Deontay Wilder. I think something like that would make sense. But as for talking about going on till he's 50, I just think that's just sort of delusional fighter talk, and that's just that that's just a crazy kind of optimism, because obviously we know, going by the fact of how he's looked in his last couple of fights against Parker and against this other guy that he actually won, beat. He's looked very, very poor against Zhang, and he's got spun around by Zhang, and he's getting up there in age, and he clearly, going by his last couple of performances, he clearly doesn't have it anymore. He's clearly, at least physically speaking, he's clearly finished. He doesn't have it in him to get to the top or to face the top guys. But as for me, the one lifeline would be if he can get somebody like an Anthony Joshua in the ring. I mean, I suppose a Francis Ngannou, yeah, that's a good shout as well, because if it generates a lot of money for Wilder, and Wilder can nail him with the right hand, and obviously Ngannou, he's not a boxer, and his only experience is getting knocked out by Joshua last time out and getting beaten by, I mean, to be fair, you could even give him the win against Fury. So yeah, Ngannou would be a big challenge, or Anthony Joshua, and I think if you're Wilder, that's the road you got to go down. But going on till 50, for me, it's just delusion. It's just utter delusion. But anyway, I wish him all the best, whatever he does. That's just my thoughts on it. Let me know what you think about this whole idea that Deontay Wilder can go on until he's 50. What do you think about it? And next time, and I'll see you next video. Yeah.